Hello there. It's 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. We all know what that means. Another riveting episode of Behind Breaking Bond. Thank you so much for joining us for this live stream. You're watching us because you obviously care about the situation that Harris County has been seeing for the last
3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Since I started at Crime Stoppers in June of 2018. We started noticeably seeing a trend in 2019. So I'm Andy Cohn, Director of Victim Services, Victim Advocacy, Crime Stoppers of Houston so far.
Yes, that's who you are. Who are you, young man?
I am Julian Ramirez, an attorney of 32 years and now a candidate for judge of the 248th District Court.
And who's that lovely lady sitting next to you?
My name is Elizabeth Buss. I am a prosecutor, been a prosecutor here in Houston for almost 10 years now, and I am running for judge of Harris County Criminal Court 5 of New York Criminal Misdemeanor Courts.
Of course, this is a big election in November, and we've been telling you for more than a year now that if this is a problem for you, if you don't want to see people out on multiple felony bonds, committing more crimes, or if you are concerned about the municipal court system that seems to be sort of on the verge of collapse in a way. I mean, it's almost, I think when you look at it.
I'm going to call a correctable error. I'm going to do an audible on you right now because it's the county court at law.
County court at law. I'm sorry, county court at law.
Am I right? Thank you.
That's accurate.
See, good. I was right, see.
He has a better legal expertise than mine, but it's an issue that obviously people care about because it is contributing to crime here, and we've opened this up. We've said repeatedly, if you're running for a judge, to be a judge, or if you are a sitting judge, we want you to come on here and we want to give you the opportunity to say what you want to say about the situation.
And if you're an incumbent judge, obviously we get it. You can't talk about cases and
right.
So forth in court, but if you just want to talk about yourself and your candidacy, this is going to be the forum open for you. And we did it during the primary election season as well. But I think this election cycle, unlike any other election cycle in Harris County, you are going to see a focus on judicial races like you've never seen before. In past elections, people would kind of look at judicial elections and go, oh, Democrat, okay, Republican, okay, or that name looks good, I'll vote for that. No, you're going to actually see campaigns for judicial seats that you've never seen before, and an emphasis on who is running, and that's just because of the crime rates that we've seen skyrocketing in Harris County since 2018.
Well, and look at the spots that are running right now. Was it Stop the Violence, where you've got Rosalie Cook's son talking about his mother being brutally murdered in a parking lot of Walgreens. Martha Medina is in a McDonald's parking lot. That's the thing too, that we're seeing people that they're not in some dangerous situation. They're not in some drug den. They're not in some crack house somewhere. They're out in public. It could be anybody's loved one. It could be anybody's relative. And I think that's the thing that really resonates with those spots, because you see people that, that could have been my mother. That could have been my sister, my brother.
A couple of days ago, Crime Stoppers hosted National Day to Remembrance. It was Sunday night, and both of you were here for that. And we had an overflowing crowd. I've been doing that for 15 some odd years. I've never seen the attendance that we had on Sunday. There were over 300 people there. We couldn't even fit everybody in the room, and that tells you we have a problem. And there were some people, and rightfully so, that were angry. And they were angry at the system and what they've done with them. So, yeah, this is an issue that people are paying attention to.
Well, and on the surface, it doesn't make common sense when you have a repeat violent offender who he's out on one bond. He violates that bond and picks up a criminal charge. Okay, maybe 2 or 3, but how many times have we seen people that are out on 6, 7, 8, 10 felony bonds? I mean, they're basically screaming to the system, I'm not going to do what you expect me to do. I'm going to keep breaking the law.
Yeah, and that brings us to why we're here today. We're going on our second year of doing breaking bond seconds.
And you look marvelous, by the way.
I haven't aged, and
You
go
haven't.
back and you look at the ages, and you go back and go, God, that was Randy. You look like a little cute.
Yeah,
handsome
Randy-
man.
When I was
I mean,
12.
look at- And I'm going, geez, Con, you're like Benjamin Button. You haven't changed a moment on this as well. So
This is
I think
true.
it's important that we get people who are running for the judge, let them, share who they are, why they're passionate about it. And it takes a lot of guts to run for office. It's not easy.
Being a judge is not, I could not be a judge. I mean, it's a difficult thing to do. And I'm going to ask you, Julian Ramirez, why you want to be the 248th Criminal District Court judge.
Because things are just so bad right now. I mean, I've been an attorney for 32 years, and it's never been this bad as far as dangerous defendants getting out, sometimes after they've been in multiple times, being released on bonds that do not protect the community, and then committing violent crimes while they're out. I have never seen it this bad.
And you were with the DA's office for many, many years. You were prosecuted for a long time.
More than 27 years. And so I had a pulse on what was going on at the courthouse. People talk, share what's going on in their court, and you never had a situation where, what are we up to now? 182 people who have been murdered by defendants released on multiple felony bonds. If that happened one time, it was the talk of the court.
It'd be huge, but that would be a huge story.
Yes, and now it's an every week thing. And I have to thank you guys for bringing attention to this problem, and Crime Stoppers in particular, for bringing the public's attention to it. Because I've knocked on a lot of doors recently. And when I talk about the bail situation, a light goes on. And they understand, oh, these judicial races, they are important. They're more important probably this time around than they've ever been.
And everybody understands that, yes, everybody has a constitutional right to get a bond. But if you're the judge and I'm constantly violating my bond, or I'm constantly picking up new criminal charges, as the judge, can't you say, hey, guess what, Randy, you're going to cool your jets off in jail now because you're not acting right?
Absolutely. There are laws that come into play that are designed to ensure that the protection of the community that are not being appropriately used. And what people need to understand is that judges set the bail. The judges do that. The judges over our district courts, not our county judge or anything like that, but our district court and county court at law judges set those bail amounts.
It's like we've been saying, the buck stops
Exactly.
Yeah.
on the bench. One of the things that we've noticed in a lot of the stories we've done on breaking bond, a lot of times we will see the bond revoked, and then we'll see it bond reinstated.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll go a little higher, and certain times we've actually seen it drop lower. And that's always puzzling to us when you revoke the bond and then 3 days later you reinstate it.
And especially if you give somebody a lower bond, it's almost like we did a breaking bond last week. And when you look at it, it's like the defendant was rewarded for constantly violating bond because it kept going down instead of going up. I mean, the judge made it easier for that individual to post bond than the first time around.
Well, I've certainly noticed that, right? Bond conditions being violated and then ignored by the court, right? Being picked back up and then let back out on bond into the community. And it's a mystery to me why our judges are doing that. And maybe some of them should come on this show and explain why they're doing it.
Because you've been around a while, like in the 2000s, up until like 2019, most judges, if you had a bond, or maybe you would see people out on 2 or 3 bonds, but you would never see somebody get 6, 8, 10, 12 bonds. I mean, that just never happened, did it?
Very rarely. And there are statistics that have been kept, and you can see that those numbers, people out on multiple felony bonds especially, has skyrocketed since 2019. That's right. And what does that coincide with? That basically coincides with good judges being swept out,
right,
and judges coming in with a whole different mindset.
And there were really good judges that had been there for many years. That it was one of those offices too. Once you got elected, as long as you did your job and you didn't, do anything crazy to make a headline, you were going to be the judge for years, for quite a few years. Look how many judges we had down there for well over a decade, right?
Right. And I think Andy's pointed out, it was uncommon for judges to get primary.
Yeah.
Right.
Never happened.
The
Yeah.
fact that so many judges got primary, I mean, shows the level of dissatisfaction within their own party.
It shows that people are paying attention.
I'm going to ask Julian a quick question, then we're going to pivot over to Elizabeth. If you are elected, what are you going to do about the backlog of cases? What do you think can be done?
Well, I think one important thing judges need to do is try cases. Because when you try cases and lawyers and defendants and the state sees that you're going to trial, they begin to take care of their business. They evaluate their cases. They change their offers. They start to plead cases, and your docket numbers start to come down. You cannot try your way out of 200 or 300 cases on a trial docket. But what you see is when you start trying cases and people understand it's a realistic possibility that you're going to trial, they'll take care of their business, and your docket numbers will start to come down.
I mean, what is really kind of surprising is when we looked at how many trials certain courts were having. And man, there were courts that only had a few. And then other courts were having double that or triple that amount. And you bring up a really good point, because I think defense attorneys, if you're in one of these courts where they hardly ever go to trial and nothing is going on and they're not taking care of business, as a good defense attorney, you're going to tell your client, just wait. They'll offer you a better deal. The docket's awful. It's not moving. Right? I mean, it's like if you see nothing's happening, then you're going to take advantage of it.
That's right. And good defense lawyers, it's human nature. You're going to take care of what is most pressing.
For your
You're
client.
set for trial 2 weeks from now in a court that goes to trial. Well, you're going to focus on that case.
Right.
As opposed to the cases in courts where they seldom go to trial. That's probably not going this time. Exactly.
Elizabeth, tell us about why you decided to run for County Court at Law number 5.
So as I stated, I'm a prosecutor. I've been a prosecutor for almost 10 years now. I was a prosecutor in Court 5 when Judge Margaret Harris was on the bench. And in that court, she had a reputation. She went to trial twice a week. And we've looked at the trial numbers. This court is not going to trial as it should. I understand we've just been through a global pandemic. There was a public records request at the end of April of this year that took data from January of 2019, when this judge took the bench, to the end of April. In that time period, he went to trial 27 times. There's another court under the same conditions, a misdemeanor court, that went to trial 50 times in that same time period. So if another court can go almost twice as many times as you can, there's no excuse for not going to trial.
Now, you're in the misdemeanor courts now, right?
I am currently prosecuting in one of our drug courts. It's Responsive Interventions for Change, that focuses on nonviolent, low-level felony drug offenders, trying to get them rehabilitative services so that they can be back in the community as productive members of society.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we hear this all the time where people will say, well, doesn't everyone deserve a second chance? Yes, they do. And yeah, there are people that they get in the criminal element because of an addiction. And there's a court that specifically deals with that. And I mean, you're looking at these people, right? You're looking at people that you have a fairly good chance of pulling out of the criminal element because of their addiction. And I mean, there's a court, that's all they do, right?
And we'll see that in misdemeanor courts as well, because they've got the DWI courts. And you also have misdemeanor possession of controlled substance cases. And so that's an issue in the misdemeanor courts as well. Also, with these courts not going to trial, DWI, if you have 2 prior convictions, is a felony. If you have not gone to trial on your first 2 DWIs, that 3rd or 4th or 5th DWI is going to still be a misdemeanor, because you don't have the prior convictions to enhance it to a felony. So our courts really need to be going to trial so that, as Julian said, defendants have a real motivation to look at their case and look at the offer that's been made by the state and determine, do I want to accept what they're offering me? Do I want to take it to trial? And get that day in court so that there is a conclusion to the case and someone has an answer.
And if there's not a conviction, I mean, theoretically, there could be somebody driving around that has 6 or 8 pending DWIs.
Right.
I mean, that's just dangerous, though.
It absolutely is.
That would be interesting to find out how many are like have multiple DWIs that have been pending for how long.
Yeah.
And I just think that would be interesting as well. Do most of the defendants appear in the court that you're in?
I would say we have a good rate of appearance. I
It's
don't
a specialized court, so
Yeah.
that's a big difference.
I don't know the stats on the percentage in the court that I work in, but I know that we have quite a bit of engagement. We also have resources that other courts don't have in our court. So when someone comes in on their very first setting, they at that point can meet with someone from the Harris Center for Mental Health. They can meet with a sober coach from the Houston Recovery Center. And if they're requesting a court-appointed attorney, we have court-appointed attorneys that work in the courts every day. And so we can set these members of the community who may need assistance from any of these places, we can set them up with services.
Would a majority of
Immediately.
the defendants in that court, would you say, are not in custody?
Yes,
Most.
the majority of our defendants are not in custody because they are generally low-level, non-violent drug offenders. And I mean, some of our docket is in custody, and we do look at the risk assessment to figure out the judge in our court sets the bonds. I feel he sets them appropriately. We have Judge Brock Thomas, who has been a judge for a very long time.
Yeah, he has.
And so he looks at the cases, determines the appropriate bond, and a large number of our defendants are on bond.
But in a lot of ways, what you're doing right now as a prosecutor is really very unique, right? I mean, it's like your court is not like
Right.
the normal felony court, because again, these people there's a good likelihood that they can be removed from the criminal element because they've got a substance abuse problem and they get treatment, and these are not people that are like, career criminals, that they're people that their crime goes back to drinking or drugs, some sort of substance abuse.
Right. And I have been a prosecutor in the district court, in the regular district courts, in the misdemeanor courts. I was a misdemeanor court chief as well. So I've handled those cases. I think what it's important to look at is are we mad at this defendant or are we afraid of this defendant?
That's a good point.
And if we're afraid of them, they belong in jail. If we're mad at them, we need to figure out what we can do to change their course.
Well, let's talk a minute about all the numbers that have been going around. The latest is the bail bondsman of Texas. They've got the dashboard where they're showing that like 70% of misdemeanor defendants don't even bother to go to court, or it's more like 80%, and that 71% of all cases are dismissed. What do you make of those numbers?
I mean, obviously something has to be done. I know the presiding judge of the county criminal courts at law had come out and stated that she did not feel that those numbers were accurate. But when you've got a report that says 80% of your defendants are not showing up to court, even if you consider a ridiculous margin of error of 20% and half of your defendants are not showing up to court, that's a problem.
Right.
The question is what's acceptable versus, what is 50% good in this day and age, so you got to look at
Right.
from that. Let me ask you, Julian, a question here. And as a longtime prosecutor, I was working with a family. It was a very high-profile case. It was a case involving a young man at Subway who blocked the guy that was trying to rob the store, and ended up he was protecting his mother. So ended up shooting and killing the young man. And they dismissed the case last week. It's been sitting around since 2017. And they dismissed the case because, and I spoke with the district attorney about it, because they can't find the witness, the key witness.
Which can be a problem.
And my first thought was, it's 5 years now. This is going to be a problem with these cases that have been sitting around forever. And, the likelihood of people disappearing, whatever is going to be happening more and more. And I just thought this could be the beginning of something that
Very, very likely, Andy, and you found that case, you heard about that case. I'm sure there are many more like it, where because the case is so old, it may be impossible for the state to find its witnesses. Maybe there's a defense witness out there that now the defense can't find, because the case is so old. That's a pretty common situation, unfortunately, when you have such a huge backlog in all the courts like we do right now.
And the thing too, we've talked about this before, being on bond was not supposed to be something that lasts 3, 4, 5, 6 years, right? I mean, theoretically, you're on bond for maybe a year tops. I mean, you're free until you go to trial. I mean, the whole system is not built, right, for this long time. Okay, you're going to be on bond for 5 years. And the longer someone is on bond, aren't they more likely to reoffend? I mean, the longer that they're out.
I think that stands to reason. And yes, the system is not designed to work with people remaining on bond for years and years and years. I think Sheriff Gonzalez spoke to that recently about the huge backlog in our courts and how that has caused jail overcrowding, among other problems, right? There's a multitude of problems that arise when a court is not able to move its docket. And we're seeing that in so many courts right now.
Do you think it's plausible? Most courts work, what you would say a regular schedule, right? A Monday through Friday.
9 to 5 kind of thing, yeah.
Do you think it's plausible to actually do like night courts or
weekend courts?
I feel like there's one point of your hypothetical that is not working. That's assuming that these judges are working from 9 to 5.
You're right.
They are, I mean, I've had a situation where a defendant who was in the court that I work in, it's a felony drug court, has also had a pending case in the court that I'm running for. The defense attorney has come up to the bench and said, this defendant has a misdemeanor warrant. They're in the courthouse. They have a misdemeanor warrant. They're sitting in the courtroom. The defense attorney calls the judge, says, can we set a bond? And the answer is, we'll just have him come back tomorrow because I'm gone for the day. And that's at like 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
I haven't done it in a while, but I can remember like Fridays going down to the criminal courthouse after noon. And it's like, good luck finding a judge.
You should do it again, Randy.
I go down there, now they'll kill me.
Not necessarily Friday,
They have my picture with this circle
or
line.
Wednesday,
Yeah.
and let the public know how many courtrooms are empty.
Yeah, it's shocking. But I'm not kidding you, like Friday afternoon, you go to that courthouse and good luck finding a judge sitting on a bench. I mean, and that's not reality. Right? I mean, most people, I think everybody that works, I would love it if Fox said, okay, Friday, your weekend starts at noon on Friday, Randy, good luck to you. They're never going to say that.
I'll bet the ratings would go sky high if they did that.
Maybe they'll do it now. But I mean, they live in it's not reality sometimes, right? It's like, well, I'm the judge, so I decide the work hours and we're going to quit at noon. I mean,
that's what's always bothered me about the backlog is I don't see anybody really thinking outside the box and saying, you know what, I got to step up to the plate and do what I can to help alleviate that. And I just don't see that.
But we don't really need to think outside the box. We need to do our job.
Just do right.
We need to show up to work and do our job.
Yeah.
And you'll see the wheels of justice start moving again.
Work a full day.
Right.
Work 5 full days.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah, like actually put 8, 9 hours in 5 days a week, and let's see how many cases actually get taken care of.
Let me ask both of you, you're both first-time candidates, would that be
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
What's it been like running for office? I can only imagine. What's it been like?
It's been quite a trip. I haven't run before in years where the crime situation was so bad, but I know that it's got everybody's attention. And so I get a lot of support. There's a lot of positive reception when I talk about these issues with people. So it's been enlightening, and it's been encouraging to see that.
So you've been engaging with the public,
I have,
on
as
this
much as I
issue.
can.
What's it been like for you to run?
Yeah, I mean, knocking on doors and getting out to community festivals, you tell them that you're running for judge of a criminal court, and the first thing that they tell you is crime is out of control. I don't even have to say crime is out of control. They know it.
Well, you like the whole catalytic converter, that's starting to slack off. But there was a time when it's like everybody knew somebody that happened to. And that's not a violent crime, but what a terrible, awful, you wake up and it's off your vehicle, you got to go to work, you got to take care of it. I know people that they've had it happen 3 and 4 times. It's just,
Well, that speaks to the local races being so important to our everyday lives.
Yeah.
Right? Our lives are affected more by these local races, and especially our court races,
Right.
than a lot of the other races that may be above our judicial race.
no doubt about it. It's like you figure we're voting on governor, and there's going to be people that go to the polls, and it's like, okay, I'm going to vote for governor. Don't just whoever's the governor is going to have less of an impact on your life, really, but it's who's your local criminal court judges, your municipal
Local races.
Yeah, they
matter
do.
more than generally your state
And
and your day-to-day
The
life.
ballot is so
It's
long
long.
this year. There are 68 judicial candidates that are going to be on the ballot this year, in
Wow.
addition to governor, in addition to county judge, all
Yeah.
those things. So it's a huge ballot, and it's important for us to vote in all of these local races that do affect us
And
so much more.
And in my opinion, just my opinion, we got in the situation that we're in because in 2018, you could still go in and just vote straight party, right? You could just vote straight Republican or straight Democrat. And that's kind of where we ended up in the situation that we're in. I mean, there are people that became criminal district court judges that they never even had to run, right? I mean, it's like they probably didn't even have to go knock on anybody's door.
Well, it's a sad fact. 2 years ago, you had a number of races where there was only one candidate
Yes.
on the November ballot.
Yeah.
So that tide that came in swept out a lot of good judges in 2018.
Yes.
When 2020 rolled around, in a number of the races, there was only one candidate. So the voters didn't have a choice.
Right.
Now, in each judicial race, you have a choice between
That's right.
incumbent
Yes.
judge
Yes.
That's
and
right.
those that run. Did you ever think you'd ever see your name on a yard sign?
No.
That's gotta be kind of weird,
Yeah, I know,
right?
right?
And you
Quite
see
a-
your name.
In the years since I started running, it's been quite a trip. It has. Yeah.
Hey, thank both of you so much for coming. Please come back again before the election to talk to us. Again, we are open to talk to every judicial candidate or current judge. You come on here.
I'll
I was nice to you, wasn't
Absolutely. You're always nice
I?
to me.
And I offered to give Elizabeth a spray tan, but
I'll
You ran out of time.
I'll even up the offer. I got no bond coffee, and I got axe grinding fear monger coffee that we can all share. And we got a segment tonight, don't we?
yes, we do. Hey, thank you so much for watching this. Remember, this is on the Fox 26 YouTube channel. You can share it. You can send it to all your relatives and friends, and be sure to watch tonight's Breaking Bond. We're going to go back and we've been, like you pointed out, we've been doing this for 2 years now, and we're going to go back and we're going to tell you what's happened to some of the defendants that we featured in past Breaking Bond reports. Be sure to tune in, Fox 26 News at 9.